Hello, welcome to Prajim Technologies. I am Venkat. This is part 24 of SQL Server. In this session, we'll learn about the rest of the built-in string functions that are available in SQL Server. Specifically, we'll be looking at replicate, space, pat index, replace, and stuff functions. Before continuing with this session, I strongly recommend to watch parts 22 and 23 of this video series. Alright, the first function that we'll look at is the replicate function. Now, if you look at the syntax of the replicate function, it has got two parameters, string to be replicated and how many times you want to replicate that given string. So this function repeats the given string for the specified number of times. Let's understand this with an example. If you look at here, I have the select clause, select, and then we have this replicate function, and to this we are passing this Prajim keyword. That's the first parameter, and the second parameter, how many times you want to replicate this. I want to replicate this 3 times. So when we execute this, Prajim word along with the space next to it will be repeated 3 times. Okay, now here is a simple practical example of the replicate function. If you look at this, we have got first name, last name, and email of the person. Now what we basically want to do, we have seen in many of the real-time applications, they don't reveal full email address, but maybe they will just reveal that using some masks. So basically we are masking here the email address of a person using 5 star symbols, and to do that we are using the replicate function. And using the replicate function itself is pretty simple here. Look at this. In the output we want the first name, last name, and the masked email. So first name, last name, we will select it as usual, but we want to mask the email column. So first what we are doing, we are getting the first 2 letters of the email. Okay, and obviously if you want a substring of a given string, we use the substring function, and we have spoken about substring function, char index, length in the previous session in a great detail. So if you want to know how to work with that, please watch the previous session. So this first piece here, it gives us the first 2 letters of the email, and to that 2 letters we are actually concatenating using the plus sign 5 star symbols. Look at this. This is where we are using the replicate function. I want to replicate this star 5 times. Okay, and then to the 5 stars we are then appending the @ symbol and the domain. Okay, aa.com or bbb.com, whatever. Okay, and again to get the @ symbol and the domain we are using the substring because we want the rest of that. Okay, so we are basically using replicate function to mask the email, one of the practical uses of replicate function. Alright, the next function that we'll talk about is the space function, and this is a pretty simple function to understand. Okay, now if you want a space in a SQL query, you basically can use something like this. So if I just want a space, I can say select, and within the single quote we can specify how many ever spaces I want. For example, if I want 5 spaces, 1 2 3 4 5, I have all the 5 spaces there, and it shows, obviously you can't see a space, but that's how it is. Now this is a little odd. Let's say if I want like 10 spaces, this becomes little odd to look at. That's why using the space function is much better. So when we say select space of maybe how many ever you want, I want 5 space, and this is more readable as well. Now in the first case you have to literally count 1 2 3 4 5. You have to do that. Here by looking at that you can say, okay, there is going to be 5 spaces now if I execute this line. Okay, obviously we can't see them, but okay, so what we basically want to do with the space function is I want to insert 5 spaces between the first and last name. I want the full name of the employee, but between their first and last name I want 5 spaces. How do I do that? We just select their first name, concatenate that with 5 spaces using the space function, and then their last name, and give it an alias name, full name from table employee. Pretty simple. And obviously if you want to do the same thing, instead of using the space function, you can literally put 5 spaces within single quotes here, but then that's not that readable. Okay, so the next very useful function that we'll talk about is the pat index, standing for pattern index. Now this pattern index function returns the starting position of the first occurrence of a pattern in a specified expression. So in the given expression, okay, it will find the first occurrence of a pattern that you want. Okay, in a way, pat index is similar to char index. Look at that, pattern index, character index. Now both of them returns the index of a string, but with pat index you have the flexibility of using wildcards, but with char index you cannot use wildcards. That's the only difference, and both of them are extremely useful. Okay, so here is a practical application of this pattern index. Now what we are basically doing here is we are finding look at the query here. So we are getting the email, and within the email I am finding this pattern, at aaa.com. I want the index, the start index of at aaa.com. Okay, before that I don't care what is there. I mean, do we have 3 characters, 4 characters? Is it Sam, Ram, John, whatever? We don't care. That's why we are using the wildcards. Again, we have spoken about wildcards in a great detail in the previous sessions of this video series, so please check back if you don't know what are wildcards and how to use them. Okay, so we are specifying, okay, I want the pattern index of this at aa.com, but I don't care what is really before that. Okay, before that at symbol. And then we are using, so I want to find this pattern in this email column of the employee table. Okay, so obviously when we execute that query, you should see, so if you look at this, I'm executing this query without the where clause. So when I execute without the where clause, look at this. Wherever we have aaa.com, at aaa.com, we are getting the index there, the first occurrence. The first occurrence here is 1, 2, 3 at the 4th position. We get that. But look at this. Here we got for at ccc.com. If you look at this string, we don't have at aaa.com string within that email, so that's why it returns 0. So if the given pattern is not found in the given string, then it returns 0. Okay, and so obviously if you just want the emails for which you have this index number, then obviously you can use the where clause and filter that with greater than 0, and it will only give us those emails which has got that pattern we want, which is at aaa.com. So that's about pat index, and it's very much similar to char index, as I told you. Alright, the next function that we'll talk about is the replace function. As the name says, it's going to replace something for us. So it basically, again, this function is really useful. We replace all occurrences of a specified string with another string. Okay, so I have the string expression and a pattern and a replacement value. Okay, in this original string, whatever pattern you specify, okay, we want to replace that pattern with this value. Okay, so if you want a very simple example, look at this. We have got first name, last name, email. Now what I want to do is I want to replace the .com with the .net. It's pretty simple to do. All you do is, okay, use the replace function, obviously. So for the replace function, you specify in the email column, I want to replace .com with .net. It's as simple as that, and give it an alias as converted email from table employee. Let's see this query in action. Again, these functions are very simple to use. All you have to understand about is the parameters that it expects. So let's execute this query. The email and the converted email .coms got converted into .net. Okay, so the final function that we'll talk about is the stuff function. As the name states, it's going to stuff something. Okay, so basically what this function does is it's slightly different to replace. I mean, it's going to replace some characters, but then look at this. The stuff function, it expects a string, and then within that string, at the start position you specify, and for how many characters, the length, okay, and the replacement expression. So what the stuff function is going to do is, you can say, okay, start at position 2. If you look at the way we have used the stuff function here, I mean, it's very clear here. First, let's understand the output that we want. We want the first character from the email. Okay, we want to leave it there. But then for the next, 3 characters after the first character, for the next 3 characters, I want to replace the next 3 characters. In this case, am and @ symbol, I want to replace that with 5 stars. And then whatever follows that, we just want that. Okay. So basically, this is another kind of masking, okay, using the stuff function. And look at this. If you look at the way we have used this stuff function, we are saying, okay, work on the email column. On the email column, start at letter 2, okay, which means leave the first character but start at number 2. And then for the rest 3 characters, if you take sam at aaa.com, okay, start at 2, and the next 3 characters, a, m, and @ for these 3 symbols, replace those 3 characters with 5-star symbols. Okay, and then obviously we are giving it an alias as stuffed email, and we have that there. Okay, so basically stuff function inserts this replacement expression at the start position specified, along with removing the number of characters that you have specified using the length parameter. On this slide, you can find resources for ASP.NET and C# interview questions. That's it for today. Thank you for listening. Have a great day.